So my name is Carol Wilson. I'm a professor of English here at Wofford College, and I'm the coordinator of academic advising here. Dr. Baker, would you introduce yourself and lead us along?
Yes, good afternoon. I am Stephanie Baker. I am a professor of biology, and I'm part of this is my fourth year as part of the summer advising team, and I also serve as a major advisor in the biology department and a general education advisor, as most other faculty members do. And now I'll turn it over to Professor Gonzalez.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm happy to be here with you. I am Lillian Gonzalez. I am a professor of accounting and have been at Wofford 21 years now. And like Dr. Baker, I advise majors and first-year students and love working with you all in the summer. And I really hope to get to know some of you as we start on this process. Dr. Lawton?
Hi, I'm Dr. Lawton. I am in my you'll be my 27th freshman class at Wofford College, which is a little hard to hear myself say that. I serve as the Dean of Student Success. I work with a great bit with advising and have been the registrar and the financial aid director in many years past. So I'm a good person. I think with the four of us here, you've got a phenomenal selection of people to ask questions at the end. So as we make our way through, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So I think I'm handing it back over to Dr. Baker to start us off on content. Oh, you're muted.
I knew I would do that. So yes, now we're at the next slide. So today our meeting is going to offer an introduction to liberal arts college. We'll provide an overview of the mission and the values of a liberal arts college. So we know students, one of the first things people ask students when they're starting college is, what are you going to major in? And we know that that's really important as students enter. Some come in with a major in mind. Some want to explore different majors. They're very important, but we want students to understand that there are 4 categories of courses that they will take to progress towards graduation. So they'll have general education courses, they'll have their major courses, there'll be interim courses and elective courses. And students have to complete all of these requirements, all 4 categories, in order to graduate. So one of the things that we're going to do as summer advisors is introduce the summer advising team as your primary academic resource during the summer, and we'll look ahead to other advising resources students can depend on. So what do? We review academic resources, so things that you need to know and use in addition to summer advisors. So there are human interactions, and then there are plenty of things on the web pages for students to explore. So some of these electronic resources include the FYI tab, a new student information page, the Wofford catalog, the interactive master schedule, many things that at least when I'm trying to learn these things, I just click around and look and explore so that you can see everything that's out there. We want to make sure that you know all about your academic responsibilities. We'll talk about AP and IB scores and how to get them sent and make sure that everything gets here. Professor Gonzalez will do that later. And also assessment of dual enrollment credits. And we'll talk about completing the course schedule plan and then registration. We'll also review dates, timelines, and responsibilities for the summer. And we'll name these resources that are helpful. So things like accessibility services, advising, the registrar, financial aid, athletic compliance. So there's a lot of things to go through today, and that's why we have 3 Terrier talks scheduled for you throughout the summer. So our goals today are that you understand the foundational ideas for our approaches to advising. We want students and those who support the students to know the responsibilities of students and advisors under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. We'll introduce you to resources. Again, the new student information page and the FYI tab are going to be the most important of these electronic resources. And when you find that you can't get the answers at those places, then you're welcome to email us at advising@wofford.edu. This is a great place to ask questions and ask for more information, especially when you're planning and looking at registration requirements. We also will be sending emails to students. So we want students to read the advising emails carefully and to write to us at advising@wofford.edu when students have questions. When writing to us, please remember to use your wofford.edu email address. So I think all students have their wofford.edu email addresses now. This is very important. This helps us protect your privacy. As I mentioned earlier about FERPA, the Family Education Right to Privacy Act, this helps us protect your privacy because we know this email address was assigned to you. We cannot make that assumption when you use a Gmail account or other type of email. So please use your wofford.edu email when you're writing to us. So now Dr. Wilson is going to review some foundations of student development.
In Wofford's advising program, we understand these concepts as student needs and development stages, and they are the understandings that we work in as we support student success. So we're going to quickly review these foundations that underlie advising at Wofford. We find it helps in understanding what we do and sometimes in helping people understand why we do things the way we do them. For example, we are committed to fostering students' beliefs that they are changing and growing as they learn. College, we all know, is a time of change and exploration, and growth is a positive word here, a mental stance that's fostered both in the FYI 101 course and LEBA 101 course that students take in the first semester. A fixed mindset is one that tells us that we can't grow or that we are set in our abilities and mindsets. And that mindset in itself can prevent growth. And so we work, for example, with my students, at least in the word yet. When a student says, oh, I'm not good at math, then I'll say, well, what happens if we put the word yet on the end? And we say, oh, I'm not good at math yet. And that suggests that there's room for growth and improvement. The brain does learn, and we work in those ideas that students are learning throughout their college career. As students work in this foundation, they are also moving through Arthur Chickering's 3 vectors of student development, and they are the foundation for the kind of growth we see, and they are a foundation for our college's student success teams. The transition into college is a time of developing competence. That's, of course, tied to growth. Students are developing academic competence because they're taking courses at a more advanced level, but they're also learning how to do academic, social, personal, and interpersonal things. And it's not always easy. And in learning, students sometimes struggle and they can even fail, but each effort is a part of their development. And so in the same time, students are also managing emotions as they experience all kinds of change. They're feeling highs and lows. There might be a disappointing grade or a huge athletic achievement, for example. And both of these experiences require students to be self-aware and to adjust their choices and their actions and their thinking. They want to maintain focus and commitment to responsibilities and goals. So we understand that both positive and negative emotions can impact relationships, academic performance, and personal and academic goals. And so in this new academic environment, students are also moving through autonomy to interdependence. And what we mean by that is that students are establishing their individual goal setting and decision making. They're still relying on resources for information, but they're also increasingly working in their own processes and with their own values as they make their own decisions. That's the autonomy part. But as they establish that autonomous identity, they are also positioning themselves to work well with advisors, because we can speak to their goals and plans as people who can offer information, resource, and guidance. We aren't invested in anything beyond their finding their success and their setting their goals so that the student can navigate their education as they determine is best. And so advisors and students are interdependent, because we both need information from one another. Questions, information, and ideas. And so in considering all of these foundations, I smiled the other day, Dr. Schmitz, Wofford's provost, noted to me that the college expects students to work in this vector as individuals by consulting the Wofford catalog. And that gives them authoritative information about policies and procedures and requirements. And then they can collaborate well by initiating questions and conversations with faculty and staff about interesting questions and concerns. And so as students take on these responsibilities, friends and family are going to be important still. And they also should encourage students to use their resources and then update the family or friends who support them to take into account the views and values of their network of support. So in these understandings of students, advisors also work in legal requirements and within college rules as we support students. And so Professor Gonzalez is going to talk to us a little bit now about the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act and how that impacts our advising and students' control of the information here at the college.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. What is it? What do we mean? As students come to college and are transitioning in and learning things, the requirements that the educational institutions we have to know will also change significantly from high school to college. The law that lets a parent go into a high school and ask to see attendance records, grades, bills, progress reports of any kind, are now establishes that the students are the owner of the records held by the college. So in high school, you could do that. In college, you wouldn't be able to do that. These records are now privacy protected records. And in college, students are the ones who are able to grant or deny access to them. So that's a big transition. And so this is definitely something that we recommend that families should discuss this summer, starting probably soon now, as you all are thinking about beginning your college journey. Because family members who have had access to these grades and schedules and progress reports are not just going to have automatic access at this time. So you should, as a family, reach agreements about what information will be shared or what will not be shared. To facilitate that sharing of privacy protected information, Wofford has a process called proxy access. Your student, you can log in and access that document and grant access to people that you want to have access to bills and grades and other items of information. So it's important for you all to note that the student can change those designations over time, but we as advisors can't override that or change that, make changes to that. So you might be asking then, what information can we share with you as family and friends of the students? Advisors can provide you with any information that is published by the college. So for example, we can, if you ask a question about, let's say, courses that students must take. So we would say at Wofford, students must take a philosophy course. That's published information and applies to all students. Or we might say at Wofford, we require 120 credit hours to graduate. Again, published information and is a requirement for all of our students. So those are things that we are happy to, that's information that we're happy to share with you. But if you were to ask us, my student has received AP credit for Math 140 statistics, or has that report been received by the college and has that credit been granted, we would not be able to answer that question to anyone other than the student. And we would only be able to do that, as Dr. Baker said earlier, if they are reaching out to us from their wofford.edu email address, so that we know we are talking to that student who owns that information and has the right to it. So if they email us from another Gmail or iCloud or some other email account, we would not be able to answer those questions. So that's basically how we are going to be working through the advising process now as we begin. The summer advising team will try to answer any and all questions that we are able to answer, but just know that we will follow the legal requirements as well as the college. So we ask for your patience as we try to work within these rules that we have. All right, and if you have more questions about that, the registrar's office has a website that has more information about that. In terms of sharing your questions and concerns with us, and we're speaking both to students and their families and friends, knowing whom to consult is going to be another really important benefit to you. So learning who those resources and what those resources are going to really help in your transition. Provost Schmitz, he said at one point recently that the president and the provost are not the best resources for questions about scheduling and classes and credits and housing and any other concerns that you might have. Instead, students can check with the advisor or other resources that you see here on your screen. And these are resources that I think will be able to handle most, if not all, of the questions that you might have this summer as you are getting ready to come join us on campus. But we are definitely ready to point you in the right direction and make sure that you are getting the information that you need. I know that we're saying this a lot and we're going to continue to say this, but it's worth repeating. Please remember that any of these inquiries must come from your wofford.edu email account. Because remember, as we just said, we're working within your certain privacy requirements. And so we will ask you to do that. What can friends and family do? Once again, encourage the student to contact advisors over the summer. And then once they're on campus, they can make appointments to set meetings with other offices and individuals that can be resources to them. And if they don't know who to reach out to, we can help identify those resources. As you've heard already, about and who these individuals on this slide can answer the specific questions for students to the students. We can only answer, and these resources will also only be able to answer very general questions about the policies and procedures of the college, and not specific questions about individual student records or specific situations. As we look ahead to the students' registration, which is what we're working towards, and beginning classes, understanding Wofford's curriculum is going to be very important. And to talk about the Wofford's very strong liberal arts education, I'm now going to turn things back over to Dr. Baker.
Thank you, Professor Gonzalez. So Wofford's commitment to liberal arts education is expressed well in Wofford's mission statement that you can see on the slide. Wofford's mission is to provide a superior liberal arts education that prepares students for extraordinary and positive contributions to a global society. The focus of our mission is upon fostering commitment to excellence in character, performance, leadership, service to others, and lifelong learning. So as you can see, this focus is on developing the whole person for living with commitment to excellence and a positive impact on individual lives, communities, and the world. We know career and work are important, but we're individuals that are more important than our work. So what we strive for here with a liberal arts education is to develop an individual's character and breadth and learning. And we're going to do that through the general education requirements, elective courses, and interim coursework, as well as major specific courses, so that Wofford graduates are prepared to lead, serve, and continue to learn throughout their lives. Sometimes students enter college focused, as we talked about earlier, only on a major, but it's important to know from the beginning that the curriculum has the 4 components that I mentioned earlier: the general education, interim, electives, and major. These are all parts of the liberal education. A major is required for a Wofford degree, but the college embraces learning and growth through a wider education whose applications extend beyond and enhance the discipline-specific knowledge of a major. So the Wofford catalog is going to be important for all students. And you can see here the Wofford graduation requirements along with a link to the Wofford catalog. But I know we've thrown a lot of links at you here on this PowerPoint. An easy way to find the Wofford catalog is just Google Wofford College catalog. It's important to look through this because everything that a student needs is there. Although the catalog can be a little bit overwhelming, there is a very good table of contents and index that you can use. As students transition into Wofford, the summer advising team fields a lot of questions about courses required for majors. It's important to know about major requirements. Again, you can get that from their website. You can get it through the catalog. But one of the things that we've tried to do to help students is create a page that you can find in the new student information that has links to suggested first courses for different majors. It's important to know that very few majors require or even suggest that students start with a major in their very first semester. There are a few majors, however, like chemistry or physics or language, where it is important to get started in the first year. Other sciences, biology, psychology, you can get started in the first semester, but it's not a requirement to get started in the first semester. But other majors like economics, computer science, accounting, English, art, a lot of these courses do not require that students begin in their first semester or even in their first year. So if you're considering one of those majors and there are no seats open in the introductory courses, don't worry about that. Go ahead and get some general education courses or other courses that count towards graduation in the other categories. So again, you might be thinking, well, what do I take? As I mentioned, general education requirements are going to be important, along with 4 interim courses. And you also have to have 120 hours. So in that 120 hours, there'll be some elective courses. And those are courses that students get to choose, whatever they're interested in for those particular electives. Okay, and I think that's where we're going to go next with Dr. Lawton.
So I'm going to pop in and talk a little bit more about general education requirements. And especially if you or your family are new to the liberal arts institution, I want to stress again, just what Dr. Baker said. You got your major requirements, your gen ed requirements, your interim requirements, and then every student has to take electives. They're all worthwhile. So some people say like, well, I've got to get these things done. No, you're going to take all these at Wofford. Gen ed requirements that every single student will take would include Liberal Arts 101, which you will all take in your first semester, a wellness course, which is a PE course here, foreign language courses. You'll need to take 2 English courses. You will not start with English 101 in your first semester. We'll talk about that in subsequent meetings, but you'll start with LIBA 101 instead of an English 101 course. A fine arts course. Here, that can be a theater course. It can be an art history, a studio art, or a music course. All those things would count. Cultures and Peoples will help you learn about non-Western traditions in any number of disciplines. A social science course, which could be education or government or international studies or sociology or anthropology. A history course, a religion course, a philosophy course, at least 1 math course, and we have a 2 science course requirement. One of those is a lab-based course, and the other one can either be a lab-based course or it can be a 3-hour science and context course. You'll see those as we continue through the summer. You'll see those on the class schedule page. There are many places, if you go looking, that you can find this. And as Dr. Baker said, if you're planning on majoring in finance and you can't get a finance course your first semester, well, that's normal because you have to have prerequisites of statistics and accounting before you can get into there. There are very few students who will start in an accounting course in their first semester. So don't worry if you don't get major related courses, because for many majors that doesn't matter so much. Okay, so I think that's good on that one. Let's go into more specifically first year coursework or first semester coursework. So in your first semester, you will have between 13 and 16 hours. And depending on you and what state you're from and what you're going to major in and what your financial aid requirements are, you have a different hour requirement. But a general rule of thumb is every semester you should have at least 12 hours. But in your first semester, if you do what we're asking, you're going to have 13 hours to 16 hours. Every single one of you in your first semester will take FYI 101. That is based on what you'll hear of as College 101 or University 101 at other schools. I help administer the program, and I like to say over and over, because I have 2 kids in college at other schools, this is a really valuable course at Wofford. Go into that with a good open mindset, pay attention. Our goal is to get you to feel like you belong here, to feel like you understand all the resources that are available, to help you through the registration process, to get you set up with career services. So go in there and take that class seriously. LIBA 101, I'll show you on the webpage. There are 27, 28 sections of that. Most of them have different topics. It's all the same course, but they're different topics. And so you'll want to go pick a number of courses that you would like to take. You're really lucky that you've chosen to come to a small college. We place a lot of emphasis on small classes. Your LIBA class will have no more than 16 students. So the bad side of that is your favorite might get picked by lots of other people, hence you've got to have a lot of backups in that. We strongly, strongly, strongly recommend that you take a foreign language course in your first semester. If you are here, I don't know where everyone's from, but we have several students coming from Scandinavian region. If you are on a passport and your native language is not English, we've already worked with you, and you would see a foreign language waiver there because English is your second language. But generally, we want everyone to try to take a language in their first semester. And then just two additional courses. It can be general education courses. For some, it could be an elective, but usually students would start with general education courses or major exploration courses. If you think you want to be a physician, you're probably going to take Biology 150 or Chemistry 123 in your first semester. Do not worry if you don't get that in the order you wanted. Either of those courses would be great. If you think you're going to be a French major, you should take French in your first semester. So there's some majors where it just makes sense, and other majors like finance, you're not going to get a course in that in your first semester. So we can work with you on advising in how to make sure that works carefully. You're going to need 120 hours by the time you graduate. You're going to have a lot of gen ed. You're going to have a lot of electives. You're going to have major courses. So try not to get into a mindset of the world has ended if you don't get the exact courses you want. Our job as an advising team is to make sure that you get courses that are going to move you on a path to graduate in 4 years in your major. And trust that between the 4 of us, we have 100 plus a bunch of years of experience. We're not going to let you mess up. So that'll help there. Okay, so I want to move then into learning communities. Learning communities, if you Google Wofford Learning Community, that's the quickest way to find out what's there. A learning community is pairing 2 or more courses together. And all of our learning communities this fall are 2-course learning communities. They generally take 2 different disciplines and pull them in around a particular subject. If anybody is familiar with the American Association of Colleges and Universities, they have a set of high impact practices that say that these things lead a student to have a deeper educational experience, more connections made, more success, good learning, and learning communities are one of those. So there's a lot of good benefits there. I'm going to show you those when I move to the FYI page. I'm going to take you to the link of learning communities. We have some that combine a philosophy class with the FYI class. I work with one on identity and educational access, and we do DNA testing in there. There's one that combines a religion course with a Spanish 303 course, and I'll go ahead and say I have 20 students a year that apply for that course, and their language placement is, let's say, Chinese. You got to be able to take Spanish 303 to be in that one with the religion course. So, read carefully, make sure you're okay. And then Theater House is one that's run every single year for a decade. And you don't need to want to be a theater major, but it combines the art of acting along with a liberal arts 101 course. There is no learning community that does not satisfy gen ed courses. So would this course be okay for me in my major? Sure, because every single one of the courses that are offered in learning communities count toward general education requirements. So you can't go wrong, again, making sure that you don't sign up for the Spanish one if you're not placed in Spanish 303. Okay, so from there, we're going to move on to look at my.wofford.edu. So Mary Carmen, if you can switch the slide just a second. There she is. Okay, so this is what the page looks like. My hope is that you are all very familiar with this. Now, if I do this well, Mary Carmen, it says you need to stop sharing so I can start sharing. Okay, so we're going to go here. I'm going to share Chrome. And I'm going to count on one of my co-presenters to yell at me if my computer starts showing you stuff that it shouldn't. So I'm in my.wofford.edu. This will be where you live for the next 4 years. As a student, you'll start out every day with the home button. Today, we're going to focus on the FY button. And again, hopefully you're very familiar with this. The first thing I like to point out is we have the calendar front and center. It is June 15th. These are the things that are happening now. We want you to have given us your t-shirt size by the end of the day, and know that for all 4 of us, we look at that and we start gauging how actively engaged a student is in the transition process, because most of the t-shirt sizes should be in by now. We know advising questionnaires come a little bit later, but your advising questionnaire is due today. That will take you 3 minutes. You may not see the value in that, but we see the value in that, because when you sign up for Biology 103, and you've told us in your advising questionnaire that you're interested in a career in the sciences, that you're interested in medical school, and you sign up for Bio 103, we can jump in and say, oh, this is a bad choice. This is for people who do not want to be STEM majors. We need to move you. If you tell us in the advising questionnaire that you are not comfortable in numerical things, and then you sign up for second semester calculus, we can pop in and say, hey, maybe you want to reconsider this and take this at a later semester. So that questionnaire is super helpful. You can move through the calendar this way and see everything that's due. They're clickable links, so you can go through there. One that I would say, and so with mom and dad listening, you can do is click download calendar. That's going to give you a form that you can download, put it on the refrigerator. And I had 2 children who absolutely did not want mom and dad involved in their college transition process at all. But it's pretty nice if at least mom and dad can say, like, it's July 16th. Have you done your class schedule plan yet? You know, so that thing. And if y'all are working together as a family, that's great. But I know we all have different parents, and parents, we have different children. This is a nice way that it can be open, and you see the big picture stuff, but you don't have to necessarily be involved more than your child wants you to. Okay, so I'm going to go backwards. Okay. Another really nice piece on this. If you click check my progress, we all like good instant feedback. So this says, and I'm not a student, so it's not going to check all mine, but it says, I've completed my t-shirt. I've gone ahead and updated my emergency contact information. So these are the things I've done. It should show up fairly quickly, but know that some of these aren't automatic. So if you do your immunization records, I think someone has to go in and manually look at those to make sure you've sent us the right things, and then they'll check that off. So if it isn't an automatic, give it a day or two, especially on the days close to the due dates, because somebody might physically need to go in and check those. But this makes me feel really secure because I know I've done what I'm supposed to do. Okay, so back to FY. We'll come back to schedule plan ready for review in just a second. Here are quick links for the financial aid homepage, the financial aid handbook, which parents and students can access this by Googling Wofford Financial Aid Handbook. I deal a lot with students when things don't go well and they're worried, are they going to lose their scholarship? And the first place I refer everyone is, well, let's go check your requirements in the financial aid handbook. So I'm on that all the time. Information about your South Carolina Life Scholarship. I'm sure many of you here have a Life or Palmetto Fellows Scholarship. The Life and Palmetto Fellows GPA is computed separately from Wofford's GPA because of state law. And so there's a way to check what your Life GPA is every semester there. Another really important thing, if you have accessibility services accommodations, that is different than what it was in high school. And so you need to submit forms to us. We will need to approve the request or ask for additional information on what you have requested. But you can find information here. You can submit all the appropriate documentation through this same form. And then it's a beautiful system at Wofford. Students often ask us in the first summer, how is this going to work? If a student in my class has time and a half or individualized, a non-distracting testing environment, the student releases that to me every semester, and they don't automatically send it to all their instructors because maybe their PE coach doesn't need to know that they have time and a half. So they say, I want these accommodations to go to instructor 1, 2, 3. Then we have to meet together about it. We determine how we're going to do it. I sign off online. So there's a record documented for me. It's documented for the student, and it's documented for our accessibility services office. And it flows really nicely. But start that now or soon, because you need to get all that done before you get here. Going into this section, there are, Dr. Wilson called them drawers, which I hadn't thought of that before, but that's a great way to think of these. We've split them up into different months of the summer. June is where we are now. You should have started setting up your Wofford email. I can't say how important this is. You want to have your email where you can check it on your phone. I would say 99.9% of you have smartphones. It's very simple to do. Follow the instructions here. You can also go right here to check your email at any time, but it's a whole lot simpler if it pops in on your phone. Just because no one in your generation uses email, everyone in your work life uses email, and everyone at your college and all your friends' colleges and universities all across the country, everyone uses email. That is our official way of communicating. That's how we keep records. So checking that every day is crucial, because we will send you things from the advising team. And if we haven't said it yet, advising@wofford.edu is myself, Professor Gonzalez, Dr. Wilson, and Dr. Baker. So on my screen, they're the 4 people I'm seeing in the Zoom window. But we're the ones, we see all messages, we copy each other on all messages. And so email is a good record of that. So email, advising questionnaire, due today, modern language placement. There are differences too. If you click on the words themselves, it shows me my modern language placement. And so for mine, it says, hey, you're not a student, but these are the languages you're approved to take. And by the way, any student can enroll in Arabic 101 or Chinese 101. So every one of you is approved for that. But then it'll show you that as well. So that's if I click there. But if I click on read more, it's going to tell me all about the language process, what my placement should be. Just because you feel like your Spanish teacher in high school was no good, or you switched to Spanish teacher every semester, we have years and years and years of experience in placing people in language. And we know that in the first few days of class, the teachers will go through with you as well and make sure you're in a good place. And if not, we'll move you someplace else. Housing form information, medical history, financial aid forms, your ID, all that's there. That's June. Honestly, it's time to start looking at July, because it's about time to start working on your class schedule plan. So you can go through these. There are videos on how to make a class schedule plan. There is really good information in the read more. Do not just trust the video. Read more and look at the video. That'll take you through all this. And then we get into July when we register for classes. And when do you register for classes? It's right over here. You register in 2 phases. We'll talk about that in the other Terrier talks, but July 25th and again on July 27th. So everything you need is listed right here. If you have not clicked on FY profiles, we have created a simple Facebook social media page. I would encourage you to go ahead and put pictures up where people can see your face or a little bit of your personality. And then notice it says looking for a roommate. I need a roommate. I don't need a roommate. We're not trying to recreate Instagram or Snapchat. That's a link for you there, but it's a nice way to see who's from my hometown, who's, what's happening here. Okay, last little piece of this, new student information. This is available through the My Wofford page where you have to authenticate, but it's also available to parents who search for Wofford new student information. There is a wealth of stuff there on anything you could possibly wonder. Our Terrier Talk schedules, move-in day information, email reminders. Then you get down to, if someone asks you in a form, what's your W number and you don't know, click here. How do I set up my mobile email? Click here. I would encourage as a family, you to go ahead and make sure all of the emergency information is set up. Some of these sound redundant, but the federal government says we need an emergency contact and a what happens if you disappear. So there are 2 different types of contacts. That's a federal law. We're not purposely trying to be redundant. Make sure we have your correct mobile phone number. On a number of applications, for whatever reason, students list their parents' mobile phone number. Make sure we've got the right one, because at some points we will start texting you for help. And then if you have anything you want to update in terms of your preferred name, because we're going to call you in the classroom, whatever's on our roster. And so my sons are Andrew and William, and they go by Drew and Will. So they would want to update their names right there. If you need to update any other gender pronoun, all that's there as well. It'll automatically flow through, and it's very simple to do. Okay, I think I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, living learning communities. That's the one thing I told you I was going to show you about. If I go into July and I click on read more in living learning communities, this will show all the courses that are available and the descriptions. Make sure you understand if you are applying to a living learning community, that says you are willing to take both of those classes at those times. So I always have students who like somehow didn't get that. Other good things about living learning communities, if you apply and are accepted into a learning community, then we register you for those courses in advance. And then you still get to register for 5 hours on July 25th as everybody else. So there's a little bit of a boost to encourage you to apply to one of these. And I may have slipped. Sometimes I say living learning. These are learning communities. There is not a shared living experience because all of us are pretty close together in 3 residence halls that are very, very near each other. And we had a lot of students in the past worried about, I want to live with my friend. I won't do that. So these are just learning communities, shared academic experiences, but not shared living. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Mary Carmen, I'm not sure how I'm stopping share. Here it is, stop share. It's been a while since we talked via Zoom. Okay, so you can grab the screen back. And then we just wanted to quickly show you again, all these have been through. Advising is good for any academic questions. And honestly, if you're lost, to write us at advising and we'll send you on to one of the others. But Accessibility Services has their email, the registrar, financial aid, athletic compliance, admission, all those are good. Okay, so now I am handing it off to
Boyce,
Me.
can I ask one quick question before
Yes.
you jump off? When will they find out if a student has made it into a learning community?
So I generally, I do that. Generally, I will put them through at the very latest on the due date for the applications, which I believe is July
Okay.
15th. So whatever it shows as the due date, I'll put you in then. But often I'll let you know in advance of that.
Great. Thank you. Sorry, Lillian.
No problem. No problem. All right, everyone. So over the summer, as you can tell from all that good information Dr. Lawton shared with us, you've got students have some time sensitive things on their to-do list that you need to get done. And we think it's best to start now. Again, being June 15th, it's best to start now. And of course, we'll just keep saying it. If you have any questions, if you run into any challenges, just email us at advising@wofford.edu. I want to talk a few minutes about your AP IB exam scores and dual enrollment. Since Wofford can't request AP and IB scores, so you have to be sure to send them to the registrar's office here at the college. They're going to arrive in July, early July. And so with registration happening on the 25th and on the 27th of July, you want to make sure that you request those scores to give time for those scores to get here and processed by the registrar's office staff to make sure that your records are up to date when registration dates come. Now, in terms of AP credit, Wofford offers credit for scores on courses that are listed, and you see the link there. There's a table, really great table that shows you the classes that you get credit for, and if you have a score of 4 or 5 and a score of 3 or above for AP Calculus BC. Okay. In terms of IB credit, Wofford offers credit for higher level IB scores of 5, 6, 7, but the college doesn't offer credit for standard level test scores. Okay. Now, what about dual enrollment courses or dual enrollment credit? In our catalog, it states dual, joint, or concurrent enrollment courses are those that a student completed while in high school, but the courses were taken at an institution of higher education. Wofford is going to accept those approved courses earned through dual, joint, and concurrent enrollment programs. These courses are treated like any other transfer work and has to be approved by the registrar's office, by the registrar. There's more detailed information, lots of really great information on the registrar's website, on Wofford's website. So a lot of your questions over the summer will likely be about AP, IB transfer credit and dual enrollment credit. So don't hesitate to write about to us at advising at wofford.edu with those questions. Okay. The next thing that I'd like to talk to you about is sort of looking ahead later this month, next week, and into July, where we're going to be offering, as you've heard, 2 more Terrier talks with more information that will help you. Our goal is to help you complete the class schedule plan in preparation for the 2 rounds of registration that will occur on July 25th and on July 27th. So we want you to all feel well prepared for those dates. The class schedule plan process asks you to review all the required courses according to our general education requirements and other courses that you just may hold interest for you that are appropriate for you. And we'll talk about how do you distinguish a first year appropriate course in one of our next Terrier talks. But here is sort of 2 resources you're going to link to. First, you're going to use the registration link in My Wofford to create a plan for fall 2023. So that's where you're going to think about the courses you think you would like to register for and come up with a plan that you think will work. Then you're going to take that plan, take the plan that you've developed, and you're going to use the class schedule plan link to submit it to us, the summer team of advisors, to review, give feedback, and to approve it or to ask you to make updates. Okay, and we'll talk about that again in our next Terrier talk. With approval, then once we approve your plan, we will release your advising hold, and then that will say, okay, now I'm prepared to register for my courses on the 25th and the 27th. If we have updates for you to make, we will not release your advising hold. We'll ask you to make the updates. You will resubmit. We'll check it. And once you've got everything that looks like it will work, we will release your advising hold. All right, so that's the work that we will be doing in the coming weeks. Now, a note of caution. Every summer, we have students who think that completing the plan is all they have to do to be ready to register. But as I said, there's more. There's another step. You have to actually take the step of submitting it to allow us to review it. And then until you get that email from us at your wofford.edu email that says, we have approved your plan, your advising hold has been released. Until you get that, you're not quite ready for registration. Completing the class schedule plan then to make sure we as the team, summer advising team, have time to complete all the reviews and get that approval, release your hold. We need everyone to complete their class schedule plan by July 15th. That's going to be very important. And then having it approved, and then you know that you're ready to go for registration. In all of that, hopefully you're hearing me. I don't want to say it again. I'm going to say it again. You have to check your wofford.edu email frequently, especially in these coming weeks as we're getting you ready. So please check that every day. Then on June 22nd, so next week, we'll offer a more detailed look about coming up, developing the class schedule plan in that Terrier talk, so that you will find that process not too burdensome. And then on July 11th, we'll offer a Terrier talk that talks about, okay, now that you had your advising hold release, how do you go about registering on that morning? Please review, as Dr. Lawton pointed out, the information linked in the FYI tab on My Wofford and the new student information page. And we really would love to see you all at those important meetings coming up. So again, check that email, read the notes from us, and respond, and we'll get everything taken care of. So our summary then, on the next slide, our summary is that your best resources to consult as we're getting ready for registration day is get that email address up and running, that you have it and that you are comfortable accessing it, checking it, using it. Explore the FYI tab in My Wofford and look at all of the resources that are available there. The new student information page, you saw all the resources Dr. Lawton showed us. And then the summer advising team, keep our email handy, advising@wofford.edu. And we will try to do our best to be provide the resources that you need. All right, so to review the dates, some really important summer dates, I'm going to turn things over back to Dr. Wilson.
Thank you, Professor Gonzalez. And y'all, I'll tell you, I've started looking at plans and corresponding with students about them. And I've seen several that I have questions about. And so there may be people in this meeting who have started doing some planning or other things who already have an email from me in their wofford.edu account. As of 4 o'clock today, I was caught up with reading all the ones that had been submitted, but continue to check and see. If you don't have a note, that may mean you need to submit your plan still, or you just may have a question. As she said, be sure to write to us. Now, over the summer, we're going to have several important dates that we want to be sure that you're good with. We're going to have the class schedule plan Terrier talk on the 22nd and keys to a successful registration Terrier talk on July the 11th. The class schedule plan is due on July 15th. And there's always a handful of students we have to scramble and text and email and push to get them in. Please go ahead and get them in, because sometimes as you finalize your first choice planning, you have other questions that come up, and we like to be able to answer those as clearly and completely as we can. Registration will happen in 2 rounds. And so on July 25th and 26th is round 1. Students will register for 1 academic course, up to 5 hours if they want to include their FYI 101 registration or physical education registration then. But then on July 27th and 28th, students will complete their registration. And so please go ahead and mark your calendars for those dates in particular. Registration opens at 11 Eastern Daylight Time. That's Spartanburg, South Carolina time. If you're in a different time zone, we can help you figure out the right timing if that's helpful. After registration is complete, some students will walk away going, got my schedule, I'm done. Some students will be like, I've still got a question. Some people may have a conflict that they can't resolve in their schedule. So August 1st through 8th, the advisors are going to review schedules. Dr. Lawton and Ms. Allison, the registrar, are excellent at this, and they correspond with students about their schedules. So check your email. Feels like it needs to be our t-shirt for the week. It really does. And just so you look ahead a little bit, August 28th is when Dr. Lawton and Dr. Baker and Professor Gonzalez and I quit being your official advisors, and you will transition to your college assigned general education advisor, and you'll have a meeting with them then. And so in the advising after the summer, students are going to have many advisors and advising resources available to them. Today, I just want you to know they're out there, because sometimes people get worried. They say, well, I have this general education advisor, but do they know anything about my major? Sometimes we do, but more important, we know who the major advisors are, and we will refer you to them for conversations. You don't have to declare a major to talk with a major advisor. There are also pre-professional advisors, for example, advisors who help students with healthcare questions, or if they're interested in pre-law or divinity school questions, those advisors are helpful. The Career Center is already a resource for students in that first year as they start thinking about internships and wondering, okay, I love philosophy, but what do philosophy majors do for work? What could we do? The folks in the Career Center are an extraordinary help for you there. And our friend Dr. Lawton heads the Office of Student Success, and their students can connect with first generation programming and learn about the Terrier Supply Closet, or consult with counselors about academic success strategies. It's not too early to start thinking about undergraduate research and postgraduate fellowships. Students can meet with advisors there to see, gosh, in 3 or 4 years, I'd really like to apply for a Truman Scholarship, or what does it take to be a Rhodes Scholar? What can I do to get a Fulbright opportunity? Those kinds of things are the things you start thinking about now. And already it's important for you to know that today, I don't expect you to remember all of these. What I expect you to remember is that I gave you a big old list of people who are here with information and who are willing to help. And we want you to write to us over the summer. But if you get to campus, then meet with your advisor and ask them those questions. And so as we finish up, Mary Carmen, I'm coming back to you and see, do we have questions we should address here for folks? Where are we with the chat and other curiosities that we could take care of today?
Yeah, so we do have some questions in the chat. I want to encourage everyone as we have this time for questions, please make sure that you're sending those to the general group chat. If you're sending them in a direct message, I can ask. So there's one question that just came to me by direct message. How can we create a class schedule plan without knowing what credits will transfer? Are there ways to talk to advisors before creating the plan on a video call, etc.? How likely is it to have classes in your class plan fill up when you go to registrar and have to reconfigure your entire schedule?
That question is written by somebody who understands a fair amount about registration. So thank you for including it. That's a great question. First of all, some courses you can see how they may transfer. If they're dual enrollment, you need to go in and get that transcript from the original institution where you took it, not your high school, but the university or college. Go ahead and have it sent to the registrar's office, because when it's processed, it will go into your transcript, and all of the advisors here can see your transcript. You will be able to see it and know how those credits apply. It will be listed as Wofford College coursework. And so that's a big help. But remember also, you can go ahead now and start looking at your LEBA 101 and your FY 101 and your language. That leaves you with two courses left. And so look at your gen eds and the gen ed requirements and say, okay, I don't have any philosophy transfer credit coming in here, or I'd like to take care of a science course for exploration. Maybe I'd like to take a math. There are ways to get a plan approved. Remember, though, that your plan, when you submit it and we approve it, does not lock you into those courses. This is a first choice plan. And as the questioner said, classes do fill up during registration. Dr. Lawton pointed out that you may want the really cool LEBA that 120 other people wanted. And so you'll need backup options and possibilities for your schedule. And we will address some of those processes a bit more when we get to the registration Terrier talk. But planning ahead, getting your first choice schedule down that works, then checking your dual enrollment and seeing if that impacts any of your registration. I'm already getting a couple of questions from people about those kinds of things, and I'll be happy to respond. One other just side note, email is our way of communicating with folks. And that's important for a couple of reasons. The primary one is that there are 4 of us. And when we write an answer to a student, then all 4 of us can see that answer, because the next time you write, a different one of us may be answering. Also, that email provides an advising note, a record for us so that we can see what we've said. I may be the only person on this call who's ever raised a student who would look at me and say, but Mom, they said. And I would say, okay, they said some things, but there's either more or less or something. And a written record allows students to share the information that is sent to them and allows all of us an accurate record, where if we talk by phone and it's a 15-minute conversation, information gets scattered and it dissipates. And it's very important that we have the words written down so that we know what we've said and so that you know what we've said. Mary Carmen, did I answer your question or did I just talk?
That answered the question, I believe. So we don't have any other questions in the chat right now. So if you guys are comfortable, we can wrap up here. As we've mentioned on the call, we have several Terrier talks ahead of us. We are doing our best not to cross over into the spam region of email. But if you are getting these emails, you might notice their frequency. Oh, there is one other question that we wanted to ask. So there was a very specific question about some STEM classes. Let me go back and find that in the chat. Let's see. They said if it's my understanding that if a South Carolina student takes 14 hours of specific STEM related courses, they can be eligible for an additional 2,500 SE state tuition funding. Is this correct? And if so, does Wofford have a list of those courses to choose from?
Mayor Carmen, that's a really good question. And what we're going to model here for you is our best advising practice. Everybody sitting here knows a fair amount about financial aid, but we are not financial aid advisors. And so I'm going to tell the questioner that it's an excellent question. Now is the time to be thinking about future scholarships or other opportunities and planning schedules appropriately, because there are scholarships that require that students take a certain number of math and science or other classes. And so my recommendation would be to call the financial aid office and clarify with them what the requirements are. And then with that knowledge, please email us and say, so if I take this course and this course, does that get me on a good start? Here is the information that I know. Academic advisors are not going to tell you the requirements for your scholarship because it's not our work. We could be wrong, but you have a good foundation already. And so you can contact financial aid, email me. I'll send you the telephone number. I can do it off the top of my head, as well as their email address. And you are right that now is the time to know about that.
Yeah, I will drop the financial aid email here in the chat. There's one other question, and I know we've been going back and forth on this, Heather, so I apologize. How do students register for summer 2 session if they are student athletes who are coming in to Wofford?
That's an important, good question. The online registration is not open. They would need to email registrar@wofford.edu. But if that disappears in my speaking and not writing it down answer, please write to us at advising@wofford.edu and we will send you the link and the direction for how to do that.
Dr. Wilson heard that question differently than when I read it. And I think she heard the right one. I thought, how are they going to register for the fall if they're in a summer 2 class during that time? But I think what you answered is what was really being asked.
Great.
Well,
I'm going to put the registrar email into the chat as well. And then any other questions, I just want to leave that out open and before we close out. Anybody? Seems kind of quiet. Okay. I am putting this email into the chat. And thank you all for joining us today, especially our presenters who've been so thorough in getting this information across. Any final words from you all before we close out?
Thank you all for being here.
Yeah. Okay, great. Again, a recording is going to be sent out tomorrow morning and we will see you at the next Terrier Talk. You're being emailed about all of this as well. So the full schedule is as well on your FYI portal. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.